Namaskar. Namaskar and welcome back on the Eikam series of the Gita on the go. The last time we spoke about the Kshetrajna Yoga, which is where we spoke about the fact that everything that is identifiable, that moves, that changes, that shifts, that is in the here and the now, and that evolves, which is basically your Prakriti, right? The five elements, the Panchamahabhuta, and the ego, the Manas, and the Buddhi. That is the Kshetra. And then that which is eternal and unchanging is the Kshetrajna, which essentially is the Purusha. I have some questions beyond that, and knowing Bhagwan Sri Krishna, I'm sure Arjun also had the same questions. And this is where I welcome back Samir into the show and ask him the questions that I've been meaning to ask. As we transitioned, Samir, and as we spoke about, and I love that hurricane lamp analogy of yours, how we spoke about how each of these avaran gets shed and how the bird from the Mundaka Upanishad moves up till it realizes they're the same. So we moved up from being the witness. So Samir, like last time we spoke and we realized how the Kshetra opens up, slowly opens up till you have reached the Kshetrajna. Through these stages in the avaran that gets shed of being the Upadrashta, the witness, Anumanta, which is the allower, the permitter, to the Bharta, which is the fulfiller, to the Bhokta, who's the enjoyer, till he becomes Maheshwara. Now, till here, there is a definite engagement that is there between the Kshetrajna and the Kshetra.
Correct.
Right? And then there's the Paramatman, so the Maheshwara and the Paramatman. And the Paramatman is an absolute quantum leap, right? How does the Paramatman then engage with the world as we know it, with our everyday world?
Okay. Have you seen a chariot?
Yes.
How are the horses controlled?
With the reins. By the charioteer.
Correct. Now, if I change the word reins to rope,
yes,
will it still hold?
Yeah, same. Huh.
The word rope in Sanskrit means guna.
Okay.
So that's a nice one, isn't it? So this is where, if you remember in chapter 7 verse 14, he said that I have my Maya and my Maya is very powerful. This Maya is actually expressed in this world in 3 gunas.
Correct.
Right?
And this is where we spoke about how it's interesting we are back to the rope analogy, because I remember when we spoke about how the 3 guna weave through the 8 elements, the 8 aspects, the 8 manifestations of Prakriti.
Correct.
And that is how the tapestry of life is formed.
Actually, even in terms of the emotions,
yes,
these gunas have a play. And actually, I'd like you to re-explain to me once, because I've actually forgotten about it, how as to, I remember you talking about the rasas and the gunas.
And we will work further with the gunas, but I remember from my basics that 3 gun hai. Tamas, which is the darkness, Rajas, which is movement, flow, action, which is red, and then there is Sattva, which is white, which is just all reflecting, right? So I was actually figuring this out in the context of, we've spoken about the Eikam human unlock model, where we have the karma and the dharma, and then we have the bhava, which is, in the way I understand it, it is the frequency at which we are vibrating that determines both the karma and the dharma and the life that we play out in this context. And so therefore, when I was working on the bhava, the frequency at which we operate, I went back to the Navarasa, which are the 9 emotions. And I was actually doing a comparison between the Navarasa and the 8 emotions that neuroscience has identified. And I thought the Navarasa was so much more powerful because they had no contextual emotions. They had only personal emotions. So when you do neuroscience, there's also trust and there's guilt and there's shame, all of which are contextual. They need a counterparty. Whereas the way the Navarasa are identified, there's actually no counterparty.
Correct.
Right? So in my mind, and I would like you to help me build this out as well, the 3 emotions, so are these Navarasas are also broken down into Tamasic, Rajasic and Sattvic bhava. And in my worldview, Tamasic bhava, which is the bhava that holds you back, the one that's fear, that's dense, that's gross, are the three emotions that are of bhaya, terror, raudra, rage, and bibhatsa, disgust. These are the ones that hold you back. They don't let you move forward. Similarly, the three rajasic, the rajasic bhava, the one that allows you to explore, go forward, grow, are the three emotions of hasya, laughter, joy, because you can't laugh unless you're in joy. The second one is about veera, valor, courage, the desire to do something. And the third one is adbhuta, of wonder, of curiosity. And to me, these are rajasic in the context that they allow you to grow and explore and do something.
Correct.
And then there are the three sattvic emotions, which are about fulfillment. So, and these three emotions in my worldview are the ones of love, sneha. So not shringar, but sneha, just the state of love that you are. Karuna, grief, empathy, compassion. And then there's shanta, which is peace and detachment. And this is what I'm hoping to be actually working on and build further on from the Bhagwad Gita, to explore the nature of these, the expression of these, the shift in the importance and the relevance of each.
You know, I like the way you've separated the three, and you've talked about the fact that one is basically inertia.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Or the darker side of us. Essentially, that is the word tamas. Tamas, the word
Yes.
tamas itself means dark. When we say tamaso ma jyotir gamaya, move me from darkness to light, it is not about like in all
Switching on the light.
yes, or lighting a lamp. Any program that I go to, you know, they light the lamp and they start chanting.
Tamasoma, Asatoma.
So, not realizing that when you're saying move me from darkness to light, it is by the light of knowledge. And knowledge alone can move you. And what is knowledge? Jnana. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma is what Taittiriya Upanishad says. Right? Jnanam, the essence of Brahman itself is knowledge. Now, when you divide these three, you have to understand one very important thing. Sattva appears to be what we call the realm of goodness, the realm of... Swami Chinmayananda uses a very beautiful word. He calls it unaction. As opposed to inaction.
Correct.
Inaction is I don't move. Unaction is where you're completely involved with no attachment.
Yes.
And then there is that medium in-between stage where you're acting with passion, with there is desire, there is anger, all of that is there.
Curiosity.
Right? Energy is there. A lot of energy is there. These three, however, are still those ropes that bind you. Right?
Okay.
Here's a beautiful story from Sri Krishna Paramahansa. So there was this man.
Yes.
And he was walking through the forest.
Yes.
And as he was walking through the forest, there were trees that were nice, there were trees which were poisonous, there were trees which had thorns, there were trees which had fruits. And he was walking through. Suddenly, three robbers, they came and surrounded him. And one said, "Maro isko." दूसरे ने बोला, "बांधो इसको." तीसरा थोड़ा चुप था. So the one who said, "Maro isko," he said, "मैं छुरी लेकर आता हूँ." And he ran away to get the knife. The one who said, "बांधो इसको," he said, "मैं डोरी लेकर आता हूँ." He ran away. The one who was silent, he immediately said, "Come hold my hand. I will take you to the edge of the forest." And he held his hand and they ran and they reached the edge of the forest. And beyond the forest, there was this beautiful city from where lots of music and lots of light and all of that was happening. It was very clearly a joyful space. And this third robber, he said, "There, you can see your goal. Go there." So the man said, "Friend, why don't you come along?" So the friend says, No, my place is in the forest. I live in the forest.
I cannot be found
in that place.
life.
I can only be here.
Wow.
Sri Ramakrishna so beautifully explains this, that Sattva can take you to the point of freedom. It doesn't free you, it still is a binder. Right? Because you start feeling nice about this and you are there and you are being there. That's not freedom. Freedom is to even give up Sattva. But Sattva helps you to go there.
So that's your Mumukshatva.
Rajas ties you down. Right? Action, desire, fruits of action. Tamas kills you. Because you move into inaction, inertia, no movement. Kal karenge.
Before we understand the nature of these further, Samir, the question that I logically therefore have is that क्यों होने चाहिए थी? मतलब I understand है, and from everything that I've understood from the Bhagwad Gita and from whatever भगवान Sri Krishna has said thus far is कि हर चीज़ की अपनी एक जगह है, एक महत्व है, एक यूटिलिटी है और कुछ रोल प्ले करता है. So I'm just trying to figure out कि यार when I hear you, when I also explored the gunas and when I hear you talk about them also, that one question that I've not been able to answer is कि क्यों है? Why do they exist at all?
Okay. So firstly, they exist only in your mind.
No.
In reality, they don't exist. Because the reality is ya, ma, sa, maya. That which is not is called maya. So what you are seeing as the three gunas are appearance. They are appearing to bind you. They are not really binding you, because what is you? You are the Kshetrajna who is unbound, who is Paramatma, which is what we saw in the last chapter.
Yes, Samir, but while I'm in this lifetime, my prana, the very existence of the life force, expresses itself through the gunas. Every breath of mine carries a guna in it. Or
as long as you are identified with that life. The moment your life force identity has transcended that limited thing of your body, mind, intellect and ego, you are no longer limited by it. You see life existing across everything. Now this challenge...
Sorry. When I become one with the life that exists around me, I am still fueling it, right, with the prana?
No.
Then how is it?
It just exists. There is no prana, there is no life. There is no question of life. It's just consciousness.
Okay.
Consciousness. Yes. Consciousness is. The question of life will then presume death. There is duality. There is no question of duality. When I am aware, I am aware. There is no question of unawareness. Unawareness doesn't exist. Unawareness comes into existence because I am not aware. Light is always existing. Darkness is the absence of light. Darkness is not a second existence. Right? That premise, if we need to understand, we need to understand the three gunas rather than driving into. Shankaracharya very clearly says, why do you want to get into the investigation of where Maya came from? What is important is into Brahman, which is.
Got it.
So, how do these gunas act upon us is more important than understanding where do they exist, why do they exist. Now, another very important thing is, sometimes people come and ask this question, and I'm sorry, but all questions are good questions, but sometimes this question is a very weird question. The question is, so am I tamasic or am I sattvic? Now, point is, all the moods exist in us all the time. They're moods, right? Every day in the morning when I get up, I am in extreme tamas saying, आज बारिश गिर रहा है, आज जिम नहीं जाएंगे, आज अभी बहुत धूप है, आज वॉकिंग नहीं जाएंगे, right? What is this? Your laziness, your inertia, your indolence, all of this is tamasic.
Yes.
Right? And then when the Rasagulla comes in front of me and I say, Eikam, what am I? I am Rajasic.
Yes.
And then, I sit down for doing my Devi worship and then I see her and me together in oneness. What am I? I am in the Sattvic mode. I am all the time transgressing, moving from one to the other. We are an infinite permutation of these three gunas all the time. No two beings are same.
Which is probably why I also like the idea of relating the guna and our emotional state together.
You're right, because you see, you are not ever unemotional.
Yes.
Right? What is important is to be able to understand the emotion.
Yes.
Be conscious of it.
Yes.
Be conscious that you are the witness who is observing that emotion.
Yes.
And therefore move away from the tamasic emotion to the sattvic emotion.
Yes.
That is the journey. We remember we talked about the lab?
Yes.
You see now? Beautiful exercise, isn't it?
So how do these
back,
play with each other?
Before we have to understand, they are all the time there.
Yes.
Right? And just by saying that they are not going to be there does not remove them.
Yes.
Once what happened was, Narad and Vishnu, they were out on a sort of a world tour.
Sojourn.
Yeah. So, and Narad very casually mentioned that, Bhagwan, I love the fact that, you have this beautiful power called Maya, and it involves this entire world, and it's creating such a lot of play and so on and so forth. And I love observing it because, you see, I am so close to you that nothing of this affects me. So Vishnu said, very nice, I'm so happy that you are in that state. But you know what, I am feeling very thirsty. So why don't you go and get me some water? So he looked around and he saw he saw a small house, a small cottage. And they were in a sort of a desert area. So he went to the cottage and he knocked on the door, and very beautiful girl opened it. And she did pranam and said, Maharaj, kya chahiye? And Narad was at a loss of words.
Yes.
And he said, क्या भूल गया मैं
Will you marry me?
आप कौन है? Will you marry me? Yes. And the girl's father comes out, and the girl's father and the mother come out, and they like the looks of this man, and he's nice and shining and all very nicely dressed. And so they say, come inside, and they give him food, and while they're eating, and they get married, and then he has 2 children, one after another. And the parents die, and then they are cremated in the backyard, and the girl cries and he also cries. And then there's a huge storm. And in this storm, he is therefore holding on to his wife with one hand, 2 kids with one hand, but he can't resist the storm. And they go. And there's this storm, and this whole thing is vanished. And he puts his head down and he hands on his face. And he's crying about his wife. Where are you, my beautiful one? And suddenly he feels somebody shaking him, Hey, Narad, what happened? Where's my water? And he wakes up and he says, what happened? Where is that house?
Where is the wife?
So Vishnu says, what house? What water? What children? Where? What storm? We've been just sitting here talking about you going and getting water. Isn't this such a beautiful story? This is the play of the 3 gunas that happen in us all the time. The only way to move away from this is to constantly be in reflection. So, see, when I tell you don't be angry, that's not going to be easy.
No.
But if I ask you to say, can I then say, I know I am angry, then what happens? Or I ask you to change the language
of my anger,
of your anger, and you say, my mind is angry. What happens? Do you see that distancing happens?
Myself, yes.
That distancing happens. And the moment that distancing happens, I go back to Maya tatam sarvam idam sarvam. I pervade everything, but everything is not in me. I am the energy that makes that happen. The moment you have distanced yourself, you are able to control it. And you move from anger to peace.
Alternatively, and since you're talking about tamasoma jyotirgamaya, asatoma satgamaya, you replace that darkness with light, right? So you replace anger. So instead of saying, even if you had to identify yourself and you're so overwhelmed with that emotion inside of you, that whether it's I am angry or anger is in me or I am feeling angry, any of those, the alternative to that is also to say, I will calm down. So don't be angry cannot work.
Correct.
But I will take 10 deep breaths.
Exactly. Actually, for that matter, don't be angry. Actually, exactly
don't. Or chill. Relax, dude.
So, I want to give you a very beautiful story that happened with me. I used to be roaming around in the Himalayas on my own, right? And at that point of time, I was very depressed because for 4 days I hadn't eaten anything. And I was only drinking Ganges water. And that was the only thing available to me. For whatever reason, Diksha nahi mil rahi thi, and so on and so forth. So I was just roaming around and I bumped into a sadhu. And so I told the Maharaj ki bahut tang ho raha hu. So he said, थोड़ी देर उस कोने में बैठो और ये सोचो कि कौन तंग हो रहा है. And you know what? It took me a day, right? And I came back and I said, अब मैं शांत हूँ. So he said, go back. थोड़ी देर बैठो और ये सोचो कि कौन शांत है. Such a beautiful state where both Shanti and that tang hona or anger, irritation were actually happening in that body, mind, intellect construct, which I am not. So Sri Krishna actually says that in the Gita in chapter 20, in verse 23, he says, Prakasham cha pravrittim cha mohameva cha pandava na dveshti sampravrittani na nivrittani kankshati. He says, light, prakasham, right? He says, absence of light or the existence of light. I am not bothered. The existence of delusion or the absence of delusion, I am not bothered. Pravritti or nivritti, it doesn't matter. I am I. I am. And I like to relate this I am with Yahweh. Right? The literal translation of that is Brahman. I am who am.
I am.
That's all. Existence alone is. And because we brought up Asatoma Sadgamaya, people firstly mistranslate and then misuse. So the mistranslation is take me from untruth to truth. Asat means that which does not exist, to Sat, which means existence. So take me from non-existence, with which I have identified, to existence, which I really am, which is the first line. The second line is, how will you do it? From moving me from darkness to light, which is through knowledge. And what will be the result? Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. I will move from the death to immortality because I will realize that I can never die. That is the mantra. That is what these three gunas can do. That is when we study the three gunas and we understand them and we use them as tools to move in our journey, is how we move forward. Rather than getting tied down by them. Yes, they are ropes and they will tie you down, but you see, the rope can be opened by a rope itself.
Or the rope can also be used to weave, right? Otherwise, and I'm going back to chapter 7, where if we didn't have these ropes weaving through, then we would have all aspects of Prakriti flying around, no, meaninglessly. Then where is the...
Yeah, so everything is tied down through Prakriti. It ties down Prakriti. Does not tie down Brahman. So Brahman...
Yes, everything is Brahman. So
Brahman does not get tied down. Brahman then, it becomes the 5 stages that we talked about. And then finally the 6th stage of Paramatma.
In the movement of those 5 stages of the Kshetra and the transition from the Kshetra, from identifying with the Kshetra to becoming the Kshetrakya or identifying or being the Kshetrakya, the first step of that is the awareness and the ability to weave, rein and drive your chariot with the Triguna. Okay, this is powerful, it's simple. It sounds simple, but will need a lot of practice. The awareness of an emotion, seeing how it will transition. That's going to be tough, and I'm quite looking forward to figuring out how that happens, Samir.
Sure.
As we move in to the next chapter, chapter 15 of the Bhagwad Gita. Thank you so much.
Hari iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga Nama Chaturdashodhyayah. Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Na 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 na.